My turn already. I came in here about 3 lifetimes ago. My name is Cliff Roach, and I'm an alcoholic. And I'm very delighted to be here, and thank you for inviting me. That's true. I'd had some plumbing surgery. If I was a woman, I'd say it was female surgery, but it's... I'm lying there in bed with many tubes in many orifices of my body, and thoroughly sedated. My eldest daughter, my Al-Anon daughter, sitting stroking my forehead, and this is the truth. I'm lying in the side. I had the surgery that morning, and the phone rings. Oh, this is Jimmy. I'd like you to talk. I said, what? I want you to talk in Maryland. Kitty, write this down. and Kitty's writing, she says, did he tell you to ask you to talk somewhere when you're lying here? She said, give me the phone, I'll talk to that son. I didn't know Al-Anons knew all those words, but she wrote it down. Here I am. First time anybody ever asked me when I was in the hospital. I hope the last. Yeah. I love the theme of this. I've been just sitting looking at that banner all weekend. More will be revealed. You know? We know only a little. That's the guy that wrote the book. We know only a little. That's what he said. More will be revealed to you and to us. And that's what this life has been to me. It's just things being revealed. A lot of stuff I didn't want to know about, really. When it comes right down to it, I just assumed he'd reveal it to somebody else. I was talking with a lady just before the meeting. We were talking about, certainly was true in my sobriety, and anybody I worked with, and I've worked with a lot of people through the years, I never met anybody had a great second year or a splendid seventh year. Now, some of the retarded ones, like the earlier speaker, they go to the third and the eighth, But you remember, and what happens is more gets revealed. All of a sudden, one day you look in the mirror and you say, I haven't changed a goddamn bit. I'm just a sober, rotten SOB, and that's all, And then you go for another 5 years. The wall comes again. More will be revealed. And that's what we're asking for when we get here. And but it's wonderful because a lot of times it's really good stuff. I sponsor a lot of guys, and it happens all the time. I'll tell a guy, "Oh, Lanny, you don't do that anymore. I'm so proud of you." And I always give him a compliment a couple times a year. You don't want to get spoiled. And but old Lanny will walk away thinking, "Hey," and then I'll think, "Hey, I don't do that anymore either." And that's, I'm just made another discovery. I don't know what you were like, but when I came to AA, I read the big book, perhaps, 10 times probably anyway in the first few years. And I was sober almost 3 years, and I don't know how many times I'd read the book when I saw the promises on page 83 and page 84. When I saw them, I hadn't gotten enough of them in that period of time to recognize them. When I saw them, whoa! Because they were coming through, and it had been revealed to me that they were coming true in my life. That they were actually happening to me. I was knowing a new freedom and a new happiness. I could comprehend the word serenity, and I would know peace. Just a little tiny bit was revealed, just a little bit, to let me know there was a lot more. And so what a theme, huh? And we had Don speaking yesterday, and he talked about steps 4, 5, 6, and 7. And that's how they're revealed, aren't they? If we're doing 6 and 7 every day of our lives, if we're doing 10 to remind ourselves of what we're doing with 6 and 7, by God, they're going to show up. It's going to be revealed. Because 6 and 7 don't say I'm going to discover anything. They don't say I'm going to find anything. I'm going to change anything. 6 and 7 says I'm completely ready to have him take him. And when he's ready in his time and his way, he will then take him away. Revealed, not discovered. Revealed. Revealed is spiritual. Discovered is people. Revealed. Oh. I think I'll quit tonight. I'm way ahead. I loved all the other speakers, even Wacky Wayne. And I love him dearly. He's one of my best buddies. He's crazy, isn't he? You know, and we're laughing at it. If you ever think, though, you know, he's in this dumpster. A human being is in a dumpster. And his father. Oh, hi, Dad. And we think that's a riot. We're laughing our asses off. You know, I bet his dad didn't see the humor in that. I bet his dad didn't go home and say, Martha, you should have seen our son this morning. He's in a dumpster, that crazy guy. So we're laughing at pain. Oh, the things that killed us, huh? We're laughing at the things that killed us. I loved the two Al-Anon speakers. Oh, they were dynamite, both of them. Of course, Carol, I've heard so many times I could help her, but and she's moving her lips now too. So I like it when she sits in the back. She gets ahead of me sometimes with her lip moving. And just love her talk. And of course, Jack, I'd known Jack for a long time and highly respected him. I'd never heard him talk before. And what a great talk. It always just breaks my heart when there's about half the people or a third of the people. So many alcoholics, they must have been the kind that never heard anybody else. And when they're missing a great program talk, two talks about the 12 steps. I love Al-Anon. I have one of my very own. My Al-Anon talked here in June. Perhaps she cured some of you. Oh, I love it when we go someplace together so I can introduce her as my Al-Anon. That's my way of getting even. You know how they are. You know how they introduce us? Have you met my alcoholic? Sit up, boy. Sit up, sit up. Tell them how long you've been sober. Oh, dear, I love them. I love Al-Anon. I don't understand them at all. I don't understand anybody spends all that much time thinking about somebody else. I ain't much, but I'm all I think about all day. How are you today, Cliff? And they drink funny. You got to admit that. They drink funny. They're social drinkers. Don't you love social drinkers? Did you ever drink with those weenies? Oh, you know, you take the cap off, you go. They'll say, I'll get it. I really don't trust people like that. I really don't. My wife, several years ago, she went down at Christmas time. She went down to the liquor store to get her yearly supply for the Christmas season. A pint. And she buys that brandy and rum crap, you know. And social drinkers, they like those hot drinks, you know. We don't drink those. No. We don't like them. You know, you puke that batter up and it gets in your nose. You talk like them for about 4 days. But anyway, she brings her yearly supply home. She goes in the cupboard, and I hear her giggling out in the kitchen. So I went out there. She'd opened the cupboard, and the bottle from last year was sitting there. She said, I forgot. Did you ever forget where a bottle was? I'm in the cupboard in the clip. Boop, 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 boop. I didn't forget where your bottle was, I'll tell you for sure. Yeah, I don't drink like that. Oh, no. I'm a real alcoholic of our type. And, I love booze. I love booze, don't you? Oh, I love it. I love it all. I love sour mash bourbon whiskey the best. I always get a little slobber when I do that. But I like scotch. I've never knocked scotch. Brandy and rum, adore. I like it all. Vanilla extract, I'm not real crazy about them. But if that's what you're drinking, hey, okay, let's go. You know, you have to admit it has bouquet. She was awful. She was always counting. Remember that? Always counting. That's your 5th one today. You just shut up and eat your breakfast, for God's sake. Carol can do it real well still today. Huh, Carol? I remember that. Don't you think you had a few too many? Say, no, you had a few too few. That's your goddamn problem. Well, loosen up a little bit, for God's sake. And I love to drink. And I got in a lot of trouble drinking, unfortunately. Probably none of you did. Much of my life is hearsay. You know, I spent most of my life saying I did. Oh, God, I'm sorry. Your mother, huh? Oh, jeez. Then I married her and it became hearsay. I met my wife in college. Shows you a girl's not safe anywhere, huh? And, she was down on Skid Row looking for an alcoholic to abuse her. And you want to be abused, you got your boy here, I'll guarantee you. We had entered this 20-year suicide pact together, and we had that dreaded dual disease. We had alcoholism and Catholicism. And we had a kid every 9 months and 20 minutes, it seemed like. Oh, man. And every time I come out of a blackout, who in the hell is that? And they're all right when they're little. They're like kittens. They get bigger. And, of course, the bigger they got, the weirder they got. And the older she got, the weirder she got. God knows the older I got, the weirder I got. And we were a weird bunch. And we ended up with 5 of them. And spent some years in the theater in our early years, and then I became a teacher. I mean, I have blackouts when I drink, don't you? And when I'm in a blackout, I like to commit felonies. Just a hobby. Just what I do in blackouts. I commit felonies. I was talking with Jack today. We were talking about clip ties. All the bartenders where I drank wore clip ties. Because I couldn't get them across the bar. I would bite their face. And the guy had a big scar. And I said, roach drinks there. Yes. And I attack people with all sorts of tire irons and all kinds of strange things. And then you become a school teacher. And they don't like that when you're a school teacher. You commit felony when you're a school teacher, they take your license away. And so then, my problem in life became not to have a blackout. And I'm sure a lot of you have tried not to do that. And I did pretty well. I would do desperate things. Eat. But I had them, but I had fewer and fewer through the years. I taught for 3 years up in the San Joaquin Valley there in California. My first 3 years teaching high school. Then we moved to Oceanside, California, where we live today. Don't confuse it with Ocean City or Ocean Birch or Ocean Pines. My new friends that I met here from Ocean Pines. That sounds weird. Pine trees are in the mountains and the ocean's down here. How do you do that? Well, that's their problem. But Oceanside's all one word. It's 30 miles north of San Diego, right on the Pacific Ocean there. Oceanside. You thought it was by a river. But anyway, we moved to Oceanside in 1961, and we had been married at that time 11 years. And it kept on getting worse. I became more and more and more and more and more, like many of you, I suppose, a daily drinker. I had to drink to survive the day. I'm unlike a lot of the speakers this weekend, although Don certainly started out being a functioning alcoholic. I am, like most people in AA, the experts tell us. You know the experts, don't you? Who are they? I think anybody has a PhD who still drinks. There's an expert. But the experts say that 95 to 97% of us that die of the disease of alcohol, that become dead from the use of alcohol, are functioning alcoholics. Only 3 to 5% of us die on Skid Row, they tell us. And I'm a perfect example of that. I'm one of these alcoholics that gets up every day and goes to work and does the job, and I do it better than you. I have to do 10 times more than you to prove I'm half as good. Anybody identify with that? You're in the right place. I'm a goer and a doer. I'm a functioning alcoholic. One guy said a functioning alcoholic is one whose wife works. Don't say that in an Al-Anon meeting either. Some of them are working, you know. And so I drank every day, but I did the job. I get up, and that's how we die. You know, we do that until our liver goes, or we have a car wreck and get killed. That's a real popular way. Getting beaten to death. I tried that on the installment plan. Very painful, but it takes a long time to die. You know. 'Cause I'm a fighting drunk. I hope there's some other macho guys here. I'm a macho drunk. He's a macho Al-Anon, Jack is. That's weird, isn't it? A stump man that's an Al-Anon. Come on, come on. He's a tough guy. But I was really tough when I was, in my mind, I was a legend, you know. And it took a lot of booze to get me brave. And unfortunately, at the very precise millisecond that I would become brave, I would lose my muscle coordination. You can get seriously damaged doing that, I'll guarantee. And I used to take these legendary beatings. And I was proud of them. That's step 2. And I was that way all through my drinking. I was a fighter and a brawler. And then I became terrified of that too. But I went to work every day, and I always did the job, and I always did it better than anyone else. We were in Oceanside in 1964. I had taken up surfing, of course. Surfer dude. 31 years old when I learned. And another surfer guy and I, another teacher, we got this brilliant idea that we would get this surfboard shop down on the beach and rent surfboards and give surf lessons and sell surfboards and repair boards, make a fortune, never have to teach school again. And the mayor of the town had this little building right down on the beach. It had been vandalized and all torn up. So he gave us the building to use free. Right on the water. Can you beat it? Just right there, sitting on the sand. And we fixed the building all up and put windows and painted it, fixed it. Got a refrigerator. And a few months later, we got some surfboards, too. No big hurry. And we had these 2 chaise lounge chairs right down on the water. Can you imagine? In the summertime. And we became sunset connoisseurs, Woody and I. We used to measure sunsets by martinis. Somebody come down the evening and say, I'd like to rent a surfboard. Get the hell out of here. Well, you were watching the sunset. One night we had a 15 martini sunset. It was glorious. And the sun and Woody and I went right together. And they found us in the morning with sunburned mouths. Do you remember that? You remember those? I think that should be on the 20 questions. You ever had a sunburned mouth? Nah, get the hell out of here. You're not ready yet. Really? I talked with a guy down in Texas, old Bill B. On the 20 questions, he wants to put, have you ever been run over by your own car while you were driving it? I've done that twice. I belong here. But we did great with that surfboard shop. We made a lot of money in the summer. But then, of course, it turned winter, and we went back to work teaching, and it was freezing cold, and the shop was closed. But I went down. In February of 1965, I went down to repair a board. And I had a hangover on Sunday morning. No kidding. Yes. And I was thirsty. Oh, really? And I went to the refrigerator to see if there's a Coke or something in there. And Woody had been there the night before. And he left about this much vodka and a half pint. And there was some orange juice in the refrigerator. And I thought, oh, that would put the fire out. So I just drank up that little bitty drink and drank it. Went on about my business. I'm standing on the surfboard, have the resin cooking over there. And, that little bit of vodka just went into my bloodstream and circulated around. Then it went. And my mind talked to me. I like to watch for the new ones. They go. How do you know that? If you're new, I want to tell you, my mind talks to me every day, all day, 24 hours a day. But the difference today is I don't listen. I don't listen anymore. I have met the enemy. He lives right here. The only enemy I have in the world lives right in there. All of them. I'd settle for schizophrenia any day. There's only two of them in there. If they got along, what the hell. But one of them that morning said, shame on you, Cliff. Shame, 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 shame. That was Woody's booze you drank. Why don't you go up to the liquor store and get old Woody a pint? That's the kind of guy I am, That afternoon I got Woody a fifth. And you can imagine what I looked like at the end of the day. The shop was a mess. The board was ruined. And resin all over me. Drunk. So drunk. And I crawled home on my hands and knees about 11 blocks. And I got up the next morning and said to my wife, I got to do something about my drinking. I'm getting drunk when I don't even mean to. I usually mean to. And, of course, she had one of those pre-Alon tics by then, had her sense of humor surgically removed many years before. And she had cut this little thing out of the paper about AA. I don't know why the hell she thought to do that. And it said, as it's always said, if you want to drink, that's your business. I love that, don't you? I love that so much. It's the only ad we've ever had. And it means just what it says. If you want to drink, that's your business. But if you want to quit, you call Alcoholics Anonymous. And I did. And old Stan came out and got me and took me to some meetings. Very few meetings in the Oceanside, Carlsbad area, in that area. All could have gone around that table. You look a lot like that group. And I realized right away I'd made a grievous error in judgment. I am highly educated, I have many degrees. My sponsor told me I'm educated far beyond my intelligence. And these people seem to have the collective IQ of an orange. God knows I tried to help them. And I was trying to help them on about the third night, and this guy said, well, we keep it simple here. And I said, no shit. You could have fooled me, Hiram. They had a sign on the wall. Said, first things first. Oh, let's hear it for that sign. What the hell does that mean? I do third things first. Why? But best, still my favorite today. Still to this very day, I go in a club or something, I just love to see it on the wall. It says, think. Yeah, we'll get right on that. That's my problem, you morons! here! And I don't know, and I'd whine and snivel in the meetings, just... Probably don't do that in Maryland. And then after about 10 minutes, somebody would say, hey, you're whining and sniveling. Well, they didn't know that I was sensitive, too. And they would hurt my feelings, so I would punish that meeting. I would not go back there again. And in a very short period of time, I ran out of meetings to punish. But I would go to the speaker meeting every once in a while there in Oceanside at 6:30 on Sunday evenings. And I would wait out in the car for the meeting to start, and I'd skulk in the back door, get the loser's chair. Somebody else had it. I think, that's my chair. And I'm the loser here. And in all my intellectual majesty, I would sit in the back of the room and judge the speakers. You can imagine how much I learned, huh? Sounded to me like everybody's name was Clem. And he'd been out of bib overalls about an hour and a half. And wife's name was Martha. And Clem and Martha, they told me, had been good, decent, happy, sincere, worthwhile folk their whole lives. But they had drunk too much. And after they had drunk too much for a few years, it started interfering with their lives. So they'd come here to the A&A and put the... And they had returned. They'd gone back to being good, decent, sincere, worthwhile, happy folk again. They had been rehabilitated. You know the word rehabilitated? My hero in 1965 was a guy named Eldridge Cleaver. He was a black militant terrorist. See, that was my politics in 1965. Blow it up or burn it down. I didn't give a shit, Wes. I was for peace. And if you weren't for peace, I'd kill you. And Eldridge had given this great speech a couple months earlier. He was talking that night about the prison system in California. He was talking about how they were always trying to rehabilitate him. You know, he said, they never knew that he had never been rehabilitated. And you can't rehabilitate somebody who's never been rehabilitated. So I don't know about you, but that's how I felt in the A&A. Evidently, at some point in your wretched lives, you'd been okay. I have never been okay. Wacky Wayne and I are two of a kind. I had never been all right. When I can remember myself when I was 4 years old, and I could see the picture. My wife calls them Kodak moments. My other wife calls them Kodak moments, where you remember everything. I was 4 years old. I was standing by the Speedway in Venice, California, waiting for cars to come. And in those days, in my youth, there weren't many. And I would wait for a car. And when a car would come, a little 4-year-old tyke with this curly blonde hair. And like a little soldier at each post, I'd wait for another one. Didn't know how to do this yet. That's how I felt when I was 4 years old. And it never changed. I lived on the edge of psychosis my whole life. Just right on the edge, and one step either way and I was gone. And I was filled with hatred, and I was filled with vendetta, and I was filled with fear. I had this big black rock of fear right there. On a good day, it was about the size of a softball. And on a bad day, it was about the size of a basketball. But that made a difference what the size was. That black ball right there ruled my life. It literally ruled everything I ever did. Every thought I ever had, every emotion I ever had, every action I ever took was generated and controlled by that black ball right there in the middle of my belly. And if you don't know what that's like, but I think you do, it's a hell of a painful way to live. It's an awful way to live. It's a horrible way to live. And that's the way I lived all my life. But when I was 16, I found a great secret. I found in my case, after I drank about 40 minutes, no matter what I was drinking, doesn't matter what I was drinking, whatever I was drinking, after I drank about 40 minutes, something happened to me. As I look back on it, as it seems to me now, what I did was I would disengage whatever lobe of the brain was connected to that black ball. And then for like 8 minutes, everything in my life was all right. There was nothing wrong with me for about 8 minutes. I was enough for 8 minutes. A lot of times right after that, it all went downhill, and the jails and the wrecked cars and the beatings, and the little children with their eyes all filled with fear, and a wife who trembled whenever I walked in the room, and lost friends, and beating after beating after beating. But for 8 minutes, and that's why I lived for the 8 minutes. That's all I ever lived for. And I'm sitting in this meeting one night listening to Clem, and I thought, they want me to give up the 8 minutes to hang around with them? And I resigned from AA. You ever done that? Really upsets them. They go, oh, Cliff who? And for the next 5 years, I'm in and out of AA. Like, I'd come to AA for 30 days, and then I'd be drunk for 2 years. Now, that's a slip. Then I'd come to AA for 40 days, and I'd drunk for a year and a half. One time I came in the afternoon about 4 o'clock, and they 12-stepped me all afternoon. 4 guys, quadro-stepped me. Woo, 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 woo. Went and got my buddy Big John. Knocked on his door. John came to the door. I said, John, we're alcoholics. We've got to go to AA. Big John said, okay. So I took him to the meeting that night and became his sponsor. Well, I came in at 4. And the next day, Big John and I both got drunk. So that's the way I treated AA. And my life continued to spiral down. And my relationship with my family fell apart. My family was destroyed. But I'm still a functioning alcoholic. I still get up every day and go to work and do that job. About 4 or 5 years before I got to AA this time, the principal called me in one day. He did a lot of that. And he'd gotten this flyer in the mail about a debate and a speech tournament, which they were holding 30 miles down the road at San Diego State College. And I was teaching this speech class, so he said, I'll bet you some kids in your speech class would get a lot out of it. Why don't you go to that? And I was in big trouble, so I said, oh, what a good idea. And I didn't know anything about it. All my background had been in the theater, but there were about 8 dummies who wanted to give it a go, and I took a half an hour, taught them what I knew. And we all 8 of us get in the car and down to this debate tournament we go down 30 miles down the road at San Diego State. And when we got there, we were absolutely blown away. I mean, there were like 500 contestants in this debate speech tournament. There were like 50 schools participating in it. It was a big deal. All the boys wore 3-piece suits with vests and ties, and the girls were in these smart business suits. We're in Levi's and sweatshirts. What the hell do we know? And they killed us. I mean, we didn't win a round. They slaughtered us. They ground us in the dirt's what they did. I don't know what kind of drunk you are, but I don't care for losing. Ticks me off to lose. And I go in the coach's room, like maybe this little section over here. There's about 25 coaches in, and they've been doing this for years. They're pals, they're buddies, and they snubbed me. It seemed to me. And so I hung around all day. We snub you more that way. And there's one guy that really pissed me off. He had a lot of hair. That bothered me right away. And, oh no, it was just one of those gray, beautiful gray hair. Not a hair out of place, steel gray. Took 9 barbers to get it right. Had about a $1,000 suit on. The other coaches did this when they went in front of him. And about 2 in the afternoon, this clown suddenly turns to me. Says, where are you from? God, I was grateful to be spoken to by someone finally. I said, Oceanside. He said, oh, where's that? 30 miles up the road. Where's that? He gave me a resentment. I don't mean a resentment. I mean a resentment. And I went back to that high school, and I built a speech team. Took me 4 or 5 years. Never a day went by where I didn't think about that gray-haired guy. But I built a juggernaut speech team is what I did. I built a powerhouse speech team. We get off the bus and look like one of those clown cars. They just kept getting off and getting off and getting off. You know how much work that is to make 200 people do what they don't want to do? That'll kill you. I go through the IQ files, find the 100 smartest kids in the school, just stop in the hall. Say, you're a debater. Kid says, I don't want to debate. I said, ask it. I get your ass in the room. They go. The guy next door said, I love to watch them leaving your room in the evening, wiping the spit off their glasses. I'm coaching! That's what I do all day. That's kind of alcoholic I am. Get up at 7 in the morning, and I don't eat all day. Don't eat nothing. It's better that way, huh? And I drink maybe 400 cups of coffee all day. And I stay pissed off. And I'm in their faces screaming and yelling all day. Reporter said to my team captain one time, what's the secret of your coach's success? She said, terror. I got to tell you something here. Last week at the local Rotary Club, I introduced that lady now. She's the women's chancellor at San Francisco State College, former chairman of the speech department at San Francisco State College. They had me come down to the Rotary Club and give her introduction. This is the thing. Yeah, they loved it. I see all those kids from those days. They say, that was great. They used to really kick us in the butt. You know, they won national championships. What the hell they care if their coach was crazy? You know, I thought maybe I destroyed their lives. They're all in the State Department. But anyway, I just would live in this white heat all day. But out in the glove compartment of the car is a half pint of vodka, whatever Thrifty had in the basket that week. You know, you blow the dust off. And I don't touch it all day. That's kind of alcoholic I am. I don't drink all day. See, I just got to know it's waiting for me in the glove compartment when I get through here. And it would call to me all day. Go get him, Cliff, baby. I'm waiting, darling. Hot vodka. I love to talk about hot vodka at Al-Anon meetings. Hey, they say. But you know what I mean, huh? Is there anything better than hot vodka in the world? And would just call to me, and I'd finish that last kid, and good night, Miss Roach. Get the hell out of here. In the car, I smoked those big cheap cigars in those days. Bud Smokes. I'd light one of those Bud Smokes, and I'd open up that hot vodka, and I'd just say, I always drank half the half pint. And it would just go down there and right into the bloodstream. It's in there, you know. And I'd puff on that cigar. Damn, you're a good coach. And I'd sit there in my 58 Chevy, my station wagon, my surfing car. One time I was drunk, I painted with house paint. And it would just crush everything it would just smash. One headlight, but like this, you know. I'd come to a corner, everybody'd go, yeah, go right ahead. Nobody screwed with that car. And I'd sit there in the dark in this car, and I'd have my 8 minutes, and then I'd go home and destroy my family. And that's what I had done. We were all crazy. We had 5 kids, and the experts, the ones I was talking about earlier, they say that every person's alcoholism destroys 7 lives. And we had 5 kids. And there you have it. We were right on the median. Everybody in that house was crazy. The late 60s. 3 of my kids are in high school in the late 60s. My oldest son is working his way through high school as a Hershey salesman. And, never had to give him any spending money, I'll guarantee you. To hit him up for a fifth about once a week. Yeah, Dad, what do you need? He had hair down to his butt. You know, his head went like this all the time. Looked like one of those little dolls in the back of a car. Called his mother man. Hey, man, what's for dinner? Oh, he was a beauty. Loved LSD. Oh, he loved LSD. A lot of you remember, they see things. A lot of you remember that, I'm sure. I'd be right in the middle of some sentence. He'd say, what was that? What was that? Across the shape I was in, I'd say, I don't know. What? What was it? And my drunken mother-in-law lived with us. And she would lean on her walker and say, I'll explain it. And to this day, it's just been the last few years, been thinking, we used to listen to the explanation. And we were all insane, and everybody hated everybody. Everybody was crazy in that house. It was a zoo. It was a nut house. But I built that speech team. dying of alcoholism, dying of a deadly disease. And I built this speech team, and in a couple of years, we won one of those speech tournaments. But I didn't say anything to the gray-haired guy. It wasn't time yet. We know when it's time, don't we? The next year there were, I think, 12 or 14 tournaments, maybe 30 schools in each tournament. We took first place in every single tournament. I can wait. I think revenge is better than Christmas, don't you? The next year there was a tournament. There were 25 schools competing in the tournament, and my team scored more sweepstakes points than the other 24 schools combined. Then I went up to the gray-haired guy, and I put my nose right against his, and I said, "Do you know where Oceanside is now?" He just looked blank. He said, "What are you talking about?" I said, "Don't you remember about 4 or 5 years ago, you said to me, Oceanside, where's that?" And he said, "We just moved here from Nebraska. I didn't know where it was." Alchemist over here. You can't just give him the coffee. "I'll mix you up a brew." Thank you, Hugo, thank you. Go back to the laboratory. If you dozed off, see, that's the story of my life. That's my life story right there. This guy had been in his bed in San Diego for 4 or 5 years, every night. And I'm up at Oceanside. "I'll get you, you dick!" He didn't know it. And right after that, my wife and I had one of our main events, which the neighbors have come to miss so much. And our neighbors never got television until after I got sober. They didn't need that, you know. Oh, we were they all had those Venetian blind marks on their forehead, you know. And we had this main event, and I moved out by popular request. I'm living down at the beach with my buddy and his girlfriend and my surfboard. And I had said for years, if I could get rid of that witch and those long-haired dope fiend children, I'd be okay. And I'd gotten rid of them, and it wasn't okay. I was drunk all the time. I was missing work, which I'd never done. And I felt like my life was just slipping between my fingers. And I went by the house one afternoon. I was haranguing my wife about money. And the Heshy salesman was kind of bobbing in the background there, humming a tune from the planet Pluto. And I did something really stupid as I looked back on it, and I turned to him and said, "Dave, what's it like not to have your old man around the house?" And old Dave looked me right in the eye and he said, "It's beautiful." And I didn't know it for a couple hours, but that was my bottom. You know? I didn't know it for several hours. I went back to that dump on the beach and sat there and watched the sunset. Still today, the most beautiful sunset that I have ever seen. The sun was in the sky and the water and the wet sand were all just magenta. The whole thing was magenta. And about the time that the sun went down into the water, I had that blessed moment that all of us had or we wouldn't be here, huh? The big book calls it the moment of clarity. My friend Polly out on the coast calls it the moment of grace. And I really like that. Because it's all a gift, huh? It's all a gift. It's all revealed. But the only way I can have the gift, as Don said so beautifully yesterday, is to be empty. Like Jack said this afternoon, my Al-Anon pal, the only chance you have is when you're through. When I don't have any more answers to my own, where I don't have any more plans, where I don't have any more rationalizations, and I don't have any more excuses, I'm just boozes, just kick my butt. And when that sun went down in the water, I had that moment. And I went in the bedroom and I dug out this book, this beautiful, wonderful, special, God-sent book, and I read it for 3 days and 3 nights. I called in sick. I didn't go to work. Hey, I had read it in one of my travels through the program before. And being an English teacher, I thought it was very poorly written. Read a lot better there. Somebody got in there and fixed it while I was gone. And I read it for 3 days and 3 nights. I called in sick. I didn't go to work. I ate a tiny bit, slept even less. And I read the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous. And in the second edition, there was a story called The Professor and the Paradox. And he was another egotistical school teacher, and he rang my bell. And on the third time through the book, on the 13th of January, 1970, at 3 o'clock in the morning, I was on page 63 again. And for you new guys, page 63, there's a little prayer. And that little prayer is step 3. What I've always called the formal terms of surrender. And in my befuddled, confused condition, it seemed like it would be a good idea if I would kneel down right there on that filthy linoleum floor on that dump on the beach where I was staying. And if I would read that prayer out loud to myself. And that's what I did. I read, God, I offer myself to Thee to build with me and to do with me as You will. Relieve me of the bondage of self. I looked up the word bondage when I was new. It means slavery. Relieve me of the bondage of self. I've come to understand that before I was 4 years old, I had built a prison. I guess I thought I was building a wall to keep you out. But all I did was build a prison to keep me in, and I lived alone in there until I was 43 years old. I loved nothing. I was here and the universe went around. And what Alcoholics Anonymous has been out to do now for almost 30 years is to get Cliff out of Cliff. Is to make me care about you. To make me be a part of everything. All of God's earth and sky and universe. To be a part of all of that. And that evening I was over at Bill Blake's house, this little electrician there in Oceanside. He had been a Skid Row wino 8 years before. And he was just a dedicated Nazi AA. He was a fanatic. He'd come from under those steps of the Seaside Hotel, and he got a hold of this book, and he lived his life by this book. And he tried to help me every time I came in AA, and he was just a bother. But that night I was at his house. Loser. 5-year loser. Overeducated, pompous, intellectual ass. Loser! And Margie opened the door. Margie's Bill's wife. And she saw me on the porch, this loser. And if you're new, listen. If you're new, listen. I have never seen anyone so glad to see me in my life. The woman lit up when she saw me on the porch, this loser. She snatched me in the house, put me at the table, poured me a cup of coffee. She said, "Oh, this is wonderful. This is so great. Bill's been crazy lately. He's had nobody to work with. Oh, this is so good." And Bill comes in the door. Cliff! Oh, hot! In about a half an hour, I'm thinking, anything else I can do to help you folks out? Be glad to help any way I can. They made me feel like Cliff's here. We can start AA now. You know? And I never forgot that night. I have to this minute. It gives me goosebumps to think about that. When I was 3 weeks sober, I was at a newcomers meeting, and one of the other newcomers said, "What do you mean this is a selfish program?" And when the guy asked the question, I knew the answer. I knew it immediately. I knew that Bill and Margie had been praying for me for 5 years. But I also knew that they were happier for themselves because they knew the great secret. You can't have it unless you give it away. You can't keep this thing unless you give it away. And I don't know how you're going to give yours away. I know why. You think all I do is come and talk at fight microphones. You ask those goofy jerks that I sponsor what I do at AA. I love to do 12-step work. I like to do get some dummy newcomer with his eyes all... Take him to a meeting. The death in his eyes. Just death. Take him to an AA meeting. Go to a coffee shop after the meeting. And the power's in his eyes. And I've seen it happen. I sponsor guys sober 27 years, and I got to see the light come on in his eyes, and I got to see what he's like. And I sponsor all kinds of guys. I have a meeting once a month with all the guys I sponsor. And I just sit there and look around the room and remember what they looked like when they got here. And you don't believe in a miracle, do that. Go find you some dirty ones.
You watch them. I know the miracle happened to me because I saw it happen to another guy last month. You got to see the miracle happen over and over and over. See, can you believe your own? And that's the way Bill and Margie were. They carry that message everywhere. By the way, that was the last nice thing the man ever said to me as long as he lived. Really. You know, Don was talking this morning. I think he had yesterday morning. He had a real point. He was saying, I think we perhaps exaggerate the meanness of our sponsors. You know what I mean? It's kind of a thing we fall back through the years. Because nobody ever loved me as much as my sponsor Bill loved me. Nobody would have gone to that meeting. He took me to a meeting every night for 2 years. That's love, isn't it? And he loved me enough to always tell me the truth. You're a dummy, you know. I heard him say. But I mean, the guy, I think the nicest thing he said to me the first 5 years was, shut up. I thought the first step was, shut up and get in the goddamn car. I really, maybe it is too, you know. Get in the car. I wasn't allowed to talk in the car. I said, well, I think, nobody cares what you think. You don't know nothing. You're brilliant and got you here. Shut up. One night I told him, well, I have degrees, you know. He says, so does the thermometer. You know where they stick that sometimes. Oh, he was cruel to me. He was kinder to some of the other guys. But he knew what I needed. He knew what I needed. When I was new, I never shook. I never trembled, but I had these involuntary reflexes all the time, you know. Nobody would sit next to me in the meeting. You know, you'd have a cup of coffee, and away you'd go. You know, and my students began to wonder, little when I'd be talking. And I was in the car. We were driving to Los Angeles to see his sponsor, Clancy. And we're going up the road. He had this big Lincoln Continental. I liked that. Air conditioning on. And I'm starting to settle down pretty good. And he gets my window right beside this big semi on the freeway and opens my window. Oh, gee. He says, love to watch those newcomers jump. Vicious man. I've tried to pass that on. I love these new crack guys. Aren't they fun, those crack ones? Man, they're so quick. They look like those little birds at the beach. Oh, I love them. I always wait till they get their coffee, you know, and I skulk up behind them and say, hey, how are you tonight? Mine went higher than yours. Last year we got this one guy, he had a big overcoat, sitting in the back of the room. So I sat down beside him. We have a big meeting, about 300. I sat right next to him. Just as the meeting was starting, I leaned over and I said, was that guy looking in the window, looking at you? He wore his overcoat out to the inside the whole meeting. We love you, newcomers. But as I said, Bill took me to a meeting every night for 2 years. He took me to meetings in Los Angeles. He took me to meetings where he took me to San Diego. He took me to meetings where people were shaking your hand coming in the door and where people were laughing. He took me where the laughter was. And haven't we done that this weekend? Haven't we just laughed till our damn sides ache? Just laugh. And when I'm sitting out there and Wayne's up here, and I'm just laughing with the tears running down my face, that's when God comes and talks to me. He comes and whispers in my ear and says, it'll be okay, Cliff, because we're laughing. Nothing I laugh at will ever come back and haunt me again. Nothing I laugh at will ever come back and bite me in the butt. I'm through with it because I laughed at it. And I'd love to get a new guy, you know, just take him to a meeting and another meeting and another meeting. And one night he goes, see, if you're new tonight and you've been laughing, you're screwed. Just like Wacky said, you know, if you're laughing and you go back in that bar, it ain't going to be fun in there anymore. Because you've heard the real laughter. My wife Pat and I, my Al-Anon, we like to take these brand new little Al-Anons to these meetings, you know, to a speaker meeting, AA speaker meeting. Brand new little Al-Anon. The guy's up here and he said, I fell in the Christmas tree and smashed all the presents. And we all go, yeah! And this new little Al-Anon's going, she doesn't think that's funny. So we take her to a meeting the next night, you know. And one night she throws her head back, and I don't care, AA or Al-Anon, once we get you laughing, we gotcha. You're ours then. I love the laughter of Alcoholics Anonymous. I think it is by far the most important spiritual part of the program of Alcoholics Anonymous and Al-Anon. When we're laughing, we're going to be all right. Do you ever notice we don't almost never laugh at anybody? Have you ever noticed that? The only place in the world where large numbers of people, if somebody screws up, we laugh like with them. Did you ever have somebody just butchers chapter 5 and everybody goes, no, you weren't in that meeting. Dr. Paul was leading this meeting when I was new, and this lady, this bag lady, was reading chapter 5, and she read, at some of these, we talked. Then she said, what an odor. I can't go through with it. And I'm sober like 3 weeks. And what I noticed was, because I'm a vicious person, I noticed that no one in that room laughed. I mean, they will not laugh at each other now. We'll laugh with each other all the time. There's not that cruelty there. Sometimes newcomers are mistaken because we laugh. We agree with them so much because we know what they felt like when they were new. And they look like, you're laughing at me. No, we're laughing with you. But, the laughter of alcoholism. I've just had so much fun in AA. I almost died trying to have fun. And I've had more fun in laughing in AA than any place I've ever been in my life. I've laughed more this weekend than I did the last 5 years I drank. Sometimes, though, I see people come into AA, they go to some gray tunnel meetings, where they sit around the table, stay sober. But that's all right if you like that meeting. You know what I mean? I got guys I sponsor, love those. Clancy, have you ever heard him talk about the gray tunnel meeting? So these guys sit around the table, stay sober, and sobriety's like a long gray tunnel, and you trudge. Every year a trapdoor opens and a cake comes down. You've been to some of those? I see people come in, and hang around a little while, and then go back out and drink and die, and never know we're having a good time here. So when I get a new one, I always take him to a meeting where the people I'm going to get him a couple at least, where he sees we're having a good time. And that's the greatest, I think, advantage of conventions and roundups and that kind of thing, where we all get together. Just laugh for a weekend. Unless we're crying. And that's just as much fun too, Sometimes I have to take salt tablets after one of these things, I've laughed and cried so much. All my life I knew what was the matter with me. I suppose you knew what was the matter with you too. I always knew what was wrong with me. I was not loved enough. I was raised in an alcoholic family. Oh, really? Irish Catholic family. Oh, really? Wasn't for us to have these things in phone booths. My poor drunken parents tried, but then nobody ever loved me. My wife tried, my children tried, my students tried. See, what I never knew about me that my sponsor knew, I never knew that never had been my problem. My problem has always been I never loved enough. My problem had always been I never knew how to love. I never learned how. I ended up with a philosophy minor in college because I took so many philosophy courses. I read all the great philosophers, and all of them told me the same thing in those pages when I went back and looked at them again. They said the way to be happy is to love, not be loved. None of them said that. Maybe Nietzsche. But all of them said the way to be happy is to love. And I never saw that. I read all those philosophers. I had to learn it from an electrician. See, but he knew how to put it. What he did is he knew I didn't know how to love. He didn't know I didn't have the foggiest idea what he was talking about. So you know what he did? He made me take loving actions against my better judgment. He made me stand at the door and greet people. God, I hated that. I'm such a snob. Oh, hi, what's your name? And the guy really and mop floors and go on all these 12-step calls. We had to go on all the 12-step. And there was a guy named Al who was just a jerk. He was a 10-year loser. And I was only a 5-year loser. And he was a big blowhard. And my kids are on drugs at home. My wife won't go to Al-Anon, and she's got a mean mouth, and I'm going crazy. And I run to my sponsor's house sobbing. You know what they're doing over there now? Come on in, Cliff, sit down. He'd wait till I finished the whole dreary story, never interrupted me. And he would say, "We'll get Al and take him to the meeting." What the hell has that got to do with a nervous breakdown, you know? It's like asking a guy, "What time is it? The horse is dead." But remember I told you, if you're new, remember I told you, I'm out of answers of my own. I don't have any more plans. So I go get Al. And I listen to his BS all the way to the meeting. Blah, 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 blah. We set the meeting up. We make the coffee. Everybody goes home. Al and I set the meeting down, load him in the car, drive. He has no driver's license, of course. And all the way home, blah, 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 blah. BS all the way. I get home, to Al's house, let him off. I start driving home, see? And this feeling comes over me. It used to scare the hell out of me. It felt so good. Better than the 8 minutes. Better than the 8 minutes ever was. Only lasted maybe 40 seconds. You know. Oh, what was that? I thought it was because I got rid of Al. You know. But you know, I kept doing those things and doing those things. You know, that feeling just kept being there and longer and longer and longer. You know, when I greeted you at the door enough, I began to know who you were. After I'd been on that door for a while, I said, "Oh, this is Betty, this is Al, this is," you know. And I started saying, "How are you?" And listening to what you said back, you know. And after about a year and a half, I was on a second inventory, and I came to the knowledge of what that feeling is. It's the feeling of being enough. And if you're new tonight, that's the most important thing I can tell you. I live almost every day of my life being enough. And I don't know what you were like, but I never was enough of anything in my life. And I live almost every day of my life being enough. And Al got drunk once more. He had almost a year. I had a year and a half. And I went to help him because he called me. And I'm on the couch with him and said, "It's okay, I'll help. We'll go to a meeting tonight, bud. We'll start all over. It'll be okay." And he was sobbing. All of a sudden, out of my mouth, I said, "I love you, Al." I don't know if Al heard me, but I heard me. And I knew that it was true. I knew I wanted that man to be sober as much as I wanted to be sober myself. And I feel that way about you tonight, especially if you're a newcomer. We'll go to the ends of the earth for you if you want to quit drinking. Because we want everybody who needs this program to get what we've gotten here. All of us that are walking around feeling enough. See, I always thought serenity was some kind of a hot flash thing, you know. Serenity means walking around in your own skin comfortably. And I've done it all in AA. You know, they were asking the past delegates to stand up tonight. And I was past delegate panel 26. That was, the one they've got now is 48. Oh, Jesus, I'm old, you know. But I was, thank you. By the way, that's his tie who's applauding. He probably thinks he's crying too much. He's going to get my tie wet. Thank you, Jack. I appreciate it. I unpacked my stuff and no tie. But we had Mother Teresa in our area before she died. Oh, really? 6, 7 years ago, she was in our area. She had a heart attack when she was there. And one of the doctors, a friend of mine, was the cardiologist. There were about 3 of them that were taking care of her. And they said to be in the presence of her was really something, that she was really a very holy person. And they all felt enriched just by getting to treat her. And a reporter talked to her there one day, and she told him something that was in the paper, and I cut it out and carried it around till it fell apart. And she told this reporter, "The fruit of faith is love. And the fruit of love is service. And the fruit of service is peace. I will comprehend the word serenity, and I will know peace." How? Because I'm on your side. Because a lot of part of the day I spend my time caring about you. A lot of part of the day I even spend thinking about you. Can you imagine? And because I do the service that Alcoholics Anonymous asked me to do, and I've been the New York delegate, and I've been the coffee maker a lot of times. And presently I am in charge of collecting the chairs. That's called a past delegate. You're nothing more past than a past delegate. And I sponsor a lot of guys, and I live a happy life. See, if you're new tonight, and there were some new ones, pretty new ones. I know one was only 3 days. You don't have to believe that anything I talked about tonight is going to happen to you. You don't have to believe that at all. I didn't believe it. I believed that it happened to Bill. And then as the years went by, I began to think, hey, maybe I can have that too. When you start to taste a little bit, when some's revealed to you, you say, hey, wait a minute. I'm getting this thing. He's giving it to me now. And you don't have to believe that any of this crap's going to happen to you. But you do have to believe that it happened to me. That a sick, neurotic, angry, frightened human being lives almost every day of his life happy and joyous and free. And that's how I live. And I hope you do too.